Hello, all you freedom-loving people. President Trump talked to Zelensky today. There's a new J6 committee. RFK Jr. is under fire for the CDC shakeup. Bondi's beefing up a new task force on child trafficking. And Kash Patel is going after fentanyl precursors from China. Okay, let's get into it. Today, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appeared before the Senate Finance Committee, and he defended the recent shakeup at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC.
Finally, I would like to address the recent shakeups at CDC. These changes were absolutely necessary adjustments to restore the agency to its role as the world's gold standard public health agency with the central mission of protecting Americans from infectious disease. CDC failed that responsibility miserably during COVID, when its disastrous and nonsensical policies destroyed small businesses, violated civil liberties, closed our schools, caused generational damage in doing so, massed infants with no science, and heightened economic inequality. And yet all those oppressive and unscientific interventions failed to do anything about the disease itself. And that's why we need bold, competent, and creative new leadership at CDC. People able and willing to chart a new course. We are the sickest country in the world. That's why we have to fire people at CDC. They did not do their job. This was their job to keep us healthy.
Thank you,
and I need to fire some of those people to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Recently, the Trump administration fired Susan Menares, who was directing the CDC. Today, Menares wrote in an op-ed that she was told to pre-approve recommendations from the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Panel. Menares wrote, "It's imperative that the panel's recommendations aren't rubber-stamped, but instead are rigorously and scientifically reviewed before being accepted or rejected." When senators asked about the claim, RFK Jr. denied it.
No, I did not say that to her. And I never had a private meeting with her. So there are witnesses to every meeting that we have, and all of those witnesses will say, I never said that.
So she's lying today to the American people in the Wall Street Journal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
RFK Jr. also said that Menares had made a statement that she would not approve recommendations from the panel. Some Democrats called on RFK Jr. to resign yesterday, or for President Trump to fire him if he does not resign. More than 1,000 current and former employees of Kennedy's department said in an open letter that he should step down, but not every senator showed anger or frustration at RFK Jr. Senator Marsha Blackburn said, "I am delighted to know you're going to end the revolving door and the conflicts of interest. I have found it so unseemly that people who work with the pharmaceutical or with a big food company then go back over into the CDC and other health agencies." Okay, we'll go through the 3-hour hearing and bring more key points tomorrow. Today, President Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky on the phone when he joined a summit via phone that was called the Coalition of the Willing. The summit was hosted in Paris by French President Macron. Nearly 30 leaders from France, Britain, Germany, NATO allies, plus Turkey, Australia, and Canada joined the summit in person or online. The leaders discussed what military aid could help Ukraine to protect itself against Russia after a peace deal. In his speech, President Trump noted that Russia earned about $1.2 billion from fuel sales to the European Union over the past year. President Trump said that this money fuels the Ukraine war. He also urged joint economic pressure on China and accused China of backing Russia. During the summit, President Zelensky and coalition leaders talked about what security guarantees Ukraine would get. After the summit, Macron said that if Russia continues to reject peace talks, there would be new sanctions in coordination with the U.S. In response, the Foreign Ministry of Russia warned today that Moscow will not accept the presence of any Western troops in Ukraine as part of a future peace deal. Today's call with Zelensky came because the 2-week deadline for a Zelensky-Putin meeting is tomorrow. Yesterday, during a meeting with Poland's President Karol Nawrocki at the White House, President Trump told reporters that he had no message for Putin, but hinted that new sanctions could be on the way.
I have no message to President Putin. He knows where I stand, and
He'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy. And if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen.
President Trump also denied the claims that he has not taken any action against Russia.
You've expressed many times your frustration and disappointment with Putin, but there's no action since you took your office.
How do you know there's no action?
But
Really?
don't you worry-
Wait. Who are you with?
I'm with Polish radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job, because if you remember, 2 weeks ago I said, if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
Yesterday, speaking during a press conference in China, Putin said that the Ukrainian military is in what he calls a critical condition.
It shows that the Ukrainian armed forces do not have these capabilities. They are not capable of large-scale offensive operations. They are only trying to defend the front line that they have. And the example that I cited is not the only time it happened. It is happening along the entire front line. And it proves, it is an evidence, and not only our experts believe that, the Western experts also believe that the Ukrainian armed forces have deficit of reserves, and military-capable units are staffed at 47, 48%. And that's almost the critical line.
Putin also said there is a chance to end the war via negotiations if common sense prevails. He noted that he preferred that option, but he is also ready to end the war by force if that's the only way. Putin added that he's ready to meet with Zelensky in Moscow. Putin said, if a meeting in question is well prepared and may potentially lead to positive results, we can have it, and I never turned this idea down. By the way, Donald Trump asked if possible to hold such a meeting. I told him it was possible. After all, if Zelensky is ready, he can come to Moscow and we will have such a meeting. But the foreign minister of Ukraine rejected the idea of a meeting in Moscow. Yesterday, he wrote on X, Putin continues to mess around with everyone by making knowingly unacceptable proposals. Last night, the Trump administration formally asked the Supreme Court to take up the tariff case and make an expedited ruling on the matter. Last week, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit ruled that President Trump lacks authority and cannot use emergency powers to impose tariffs. The appeals court said that Congress has the power to impose tariffs and not the president. But the court placed the decision on hold to give the administration time to appeal. The court also allowed the tariffs to remain in effect until October 14th to give the Supreme Court time to review the case. In response on Tuesday, President Trump said that his administration would push for an expedited Supreme Court ruling and would ask for early admission and a quick decision. President Trump also wrote on Truth Social, look at the financial fabric of our country. We're a rich, incredible country right now, and we're able to. Other countries use tariffs on us for years, and we never did. So last night, Solicitor General D. John Sauer asked the Supreme Court to decide whether it would review the case by September 10th and then schedule oral arguments for the first week of November if it does decide to get involved. Yesterday, the House of Representatives approved the establishment of a new committee to investigate the January 6 Capitol breach in 2021. The resolution to authorize the new panel was introduced by Representative Barry Loudermilk, who will now chair the panel. Loudermilk had been targeted for investigation by the previous January 6 panel over a tour that he gave of the Capitol complex in the days before the Stop the Steal rally. This is the second panel that is approved by Congress to investigate the events of January 6, 2021 and the days leading up to the Capitol breach. Previously, House Speaker Mike Johnson promised to establish a new subcommittee to investigate January 6 after criticism that the previous panel was biased and partisan, and later, ahead of the recess, Speaker Johnson backed the bill, and he said, House Republicans are proud of our work so far in exposing the false narratives peddled by the politically motivated January 6 Select Committee during the 117th Congress, but there is clearly more work to be done. Johnson said that the resolution would allow Congress to continue our efforts to uncover the full truth that is owed to the American people. The previous panel was approved by Democrats in 2021. Controversially, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not allow then House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to select which Republicans would sit on the panel. Instead, Pelosi chose two Republicans who were critical of President Trump to sit on the panel. Representative Liz Cheney was named ranking member, and Representative Adam Kinzinger was also appointed to the GOP side. The panel, which was highly critical of President Trump, concluded in their final report that President Trump was responsible for the events of the day and that he failed to take appropriate action to disperse the crowd after they entered the building. In response, President Trump maintained that it was not his responsibility. President Trump and his allies have pointed to his offer to send the National Guard to the Capitol ahead of the January 6 rally. According to then House Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving, a request from the Capitol Police for National Guard support was denied because Pelosi would never go for it. So now we'll have to see what the new panel will conclude after the new investigation. Yesterday, the Department of Justice announced that a federal grand jury in Dayton, Ohio, has indicted 3 U.S. citizens, 22 Chinese nationals, and 4 Chinese chemical and pharmaceutical companies on charges of transnational drug smuggling and money laundering conspiracy. Simultaneously, the Treasury Department imposed sanctions on one of the Guangzhou-based companies and 2 of its senior executives. This is one of the largest transnational enforcement actions that the U.S. has taken against Chinese pharmaceutical companies to date. FBI Director Kash Patel said Operation Box Cutter is the first of its kind in addressing precursors that help make fentanyl. Dominic S. Giracha II, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio, stated that the Chinese companies involved knowingly sold products to the United States under the guise of fake pharmaceutical and chemical firms, despite being aware that these products would be used to enhance the potency and yield of fentanyl. Ultimately, these lethal mixtures flowed directly into American communities. Patel revealed that the seized fentanyl powder was sufficient to kill 70 million people, while the fentanyl pills were enough to kill 270,000 people. Eric Michael Payne, a 39-year-old Ohio resident, has been charged as the primary suspect for a fentanyl smuggling operation. He buys cutting agents from Chinese companies and then distributes them to dealers. Cutting agents are used to increase the yield and potency of drugs. Payne and his significant other then transfer cryptocurrency to the companies. A third U.S. citizen, Sandra Bridden Davis, also helped transfer funds. 22 Chinese citizens were also indicted. In tandem with the indictment, the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Controls announced sanctions against the indicted Guangzhou Tengye Chemical Company and 2 company representatives. These 2 individuals are among the 22 people being prosecuted. Under the sanctions provisions, all assets held by Guangzhou Tengye and by the 2 representatives in the United States or by U.S. persons will be frozen. U.S. citizens and businesses are also prohibited from engaging in transactions with them. And to bring criminals involved in human trafficking to justice, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced today the expansion of Joint Task Force Alpha. Along with DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the task force will include DEA, ATF, and FBI agents along the north and south borders and along the maritime borders. They will be targeting key figures in cartels, human and child trafficking, and transnational criminals.
We are investigating and prosecuting their crimes more aggressively than ever, and Joint Task Force Alpha is the tip of the spear. We have been working on that with Secretary Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, and I cannot say enough good things about Secretary Noem. I was with her in Louisiana yesterday, and she is fighting to keep our country safe every single day. Just this week, Joint Task Force Alpha took 4 major enforcement actions. Right here in Tampa, we unsealed the indictment charging 12 defendants operating right here in Tampa, a massive illegal smuggling ring. The defendants engaged in a conspiracy to bring illegal aliens from Cuba to the U.S. for profit. They coached their clients, including children, who came to airports alone, came to our country alone, were put on planes for connecting flights, lied to Border Patrol agents due to coaching, and law enforcement. They charged up to $40,000 per victim. They used Zelle to transfer over $7 million over the course of this scheme, and I believe had profits, cash, of over $18 million.
Pam Bondi also recounted a horrific story of child trafficking and one along the Canada border.
In the Western District of Texas, where Justin Simmons is our U.S. attorney, we just this week charged 4 defendants with their role in a deplorable scheme smuggling unaccompanied children into the United States from Mexico. These monsters behind the operation drugged unaccompanied children coming into our country, giving them THC so they would be asleep when passing through customs. One of the children was overdosed so badly that the child had to go to the hospital. Since President Trump took office, Joint Task Force Alpha has charged 56 defendants, including convicting a monster who attempted to bring in Indian nationals into our country in sub-zero weather through Canada in the middle of a blizzard. This was a family of 4. This family was eventually found dead in a blizzard with the father holding the 3-year-old little boy wrapped in a blanket with his glove covering his child's face, trying to save his life.
The collapse of Evergrande in China was the spark. Now the fire is inside the Chinese Communist Party's banking system. Hidden debts, political meddling, and a wave of bank delistings show the cracks in the CCP system. So the question is, can China's banks survive the storm ahead? Let's dig more into the situation. Yesterday we talked about Shenzhen Bank delisting from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and then suspending cash withdrawals, causing depositors to stage protests. Wang He, a columnist for the Epoch Times, further pointed out that the delisting of Shenzhen Bank was precisely the result of an unresolved burden of Evergrande and its internal operation issues. He said Evergrande's liabilities amount to 2.4 trillion yuan, or $340 billion, with bank loans alone estimated at 700 to 800 billion yuan, or about $100 billion. No bank entangled with Evergrande can emerge unscathed. The fate of Shenzhen Bank is deeply intertwined with Evergrande, marking a brutal capital plunder. According to the Epoch Times, informed sources revealed that in October of 2023, Zhang Yikun, the former chairman of Shenzhen Bank who brought Evergrande in as a major shareholder, was brought back to China. According to a post on X, Zhang Yikun allegedly extended loans totaling over 270 billion yuan, or $38 billion, to Evergrande, receiving staggering kickbacks in return. Naturally, such information was highly unlikely to appear in official reports at the time. With the CCP's factional struggles intensifying, internal leaks may surface at some point in the future. Also, in October of 2023, Shenzhen Financial Holdings, a state-owned capital investment and operation platform established by the Shenyang government, increased its stake in Shenzhen Bank twice within the same year, becoming the bank's largest shareholder. Regarding the state-owned capital's intervention, economist Davy J. Wong told the Epoch Times, while state capital can temporarily alleviate market pressures, it essentially serves as a life support measure rather than a fundamental transformation. Within the democratic system, Shenzhen Bank exemplifies bad money driving out good, lacking sufficient market-oriented capabilities. Wang He added that Evergrande's massive debt cannot be fully resolved, and numerous local banks nationwide may be implicated as a result. He said, delisting is merely a symptom. The real challenge lies in systemic reform. The Shenzhen case also reveals that small and medium-sized banks lack market-oriented governance. Their board structures are influenced by local authorities, and they suffer from insufficient professional competence. Shen Ming, the director at Beijing's investment bank, Chan Sun and Company, pointed out that for capital-hungry Chinese enterprises, especially real estate developers like Evergrande, holding shares in commercial banks is seen as a flexible financing method. These Chinese banks, controlled by private enterprises, are forced to extend massive loans to their major shareholders. According to U.S. financial media outlet Barron's, real estate-related loans in China account for approximately 40% of the banking sector's total assets. Under international standards, a healthy banking system should maintain non-performing loan ratios below 2%, with ratios exceeding 5% indicating significant pressure. China's real estate development loan non-performing ratio was projected to climb to 6.4% in 2025. On August 29th, Wu Jian, the deputy governor of the Bank of China, stated at this year's mid-year results briefing that the real estate sector remains the primary source of new non-performing loans in China. Risk management pressures are also primarily concentrated in the real estate sector, personal loans, and overseas operations. According to the latest financial reports from Chinese banks released on August 30th, the 5 major Chinese banks have seen a sharp increase in non-performing loans and a net interest margin hitting a historic low, indicating hidden risks within the financial system. For instance, the total amount of non-performing consumer loans at Industrial and Commercial Bank of China exceeded 11 billion yuan or $1.5 billion at the end of the second quarter, doubling from the same period last year. Meanwhile, the non-performing loan ratio at China Construction Bank and Agricultural Bank of China have deteriorated for 4 consecutive quarters. This risk has already materialized prematurely in northeast China. Several small and medium-sized banks have faced deposit and loan crises. In the region, a delisting wave targeting Hong Kong-listed banks has quietly unfolded. Previously, 2 Hong Kong-listed banks from northeast China have either been delisted or are in the process of delisting. The Northeast region once boasted the 4 big listed banks, comprising Shenzhen Bank, Jinjiao Bank, Jutai Rural Commercial Bank, and Harbin Bank. However, in recent years, only Harbin Bank has managed to maintain its listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, while the other 3 have successfully delisted. This demonstrates the severe challenges that regional banks face in pursuing public listings. This series of events also reflects the systemic dilemma of political interference in the governance of China's local banks, which is a widespread issue within China. China lacks mechanisms to handle bank bankruptcies. Chinese regulators typically address systemic risk diffusion crises by pushing local government to consolidate troubled banks through fiscal measures. In 2023 alone, 5 similar institutions were established to tackle this issue, with more expected in the future. Experts note that Shenzhen Bank's delisting not only symbolizes the end of its era in the capital markets, but also epitomizes China's banking sector's high leverage and deep-rooted political business collusion. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.